This video was made possible by Skillshare. Learn what you want to learn with Skillshare for free for 2 months at the link in the description. So this is the flag of Chad and this is the flag of Romania. Confusing, right? Well, you know what's really confusing? The 17th century in Europe. Finland was Swedish, Venice was a country ruled by a doge, Germany was a bajillion different things, Belgium was Spanish but called the Netherlands. Really nothing made sense. One of the few things that did make sense though was that, aside from Spain holding territory on 5 different continents and France 4, mainland Spain looked like Spain and mainland France looked like France. Spain was ruled by the Habsburgs, an 11th through 17th century version of the Kardashians that gained huge amounts of power through marrying other powerful people. These Habsburgs also happened to rule the Holy Roman Empire to the north and east, which meant that France was completely surrounded. The country remembered the venerable adage, violence is always the answer, and got to fighting. The Habsburgs and French were already fighting in the 30 Years' War, but as they teach you in war school, if you're already fighting one war, might as well start another one on a completely different front. So, blah blah blah, 24 years of fighting, a couple 100,000 casualties, and surprise surprise, there was really no clear winner, but Spain and France agreed to sign a treaty to end the conflict. Today, the French-Spanish border just looks like this. You could actually accidentally drive into Spain as there's no border controls thanks to the EU Schengen zone, but back in the 17th century, the border was one of the most heavily guarded in the world. You could compare it to the DMZ between North and South Korea today, minus the world's most threatening toddler. In the Korean DMZ, the two countries' representatives meet in buildings directly on the border which have tables inside directly on the border, so South Koreans can sit in their country and North Koreans can sit in theirs, but back centuries ago, the French and Spanish had a different solution. They would meet here, on Pheasant Island in the middle of the Bidassoa River between the French town of Hendaye and the Spanish town of Irun. Throughout history, this island had been used a few times as a diplomatic meeting point. In that time, diplomacy normally meant sending your royal son or daughter to another country to be married to their royals, but in this case, they had advanced to forcibly marrying their kids and signing a treaty. In the treaty signed on Pheasant Island, the Treaty of the Pyrenees, the island was established as a condominium, not where your grandma lives, a territory administered by multiple countries. There are a few modern-day examples of this kind of territory. Antarctica, for example, is one, as every country that signed the Antarctica Treaty is responsible for the administration of the continent. The Moselle River, which forms part of the border between Luxembourg and Germany, is also a condominium, and so there are a number of bridges and islands which are part of both countries. There's a tiny island in the river quite fittingly near the town of Schengen that's mostly French but also both German and Luxembourgish. What makes Pheasant Island different than every other condominium in the world, though, is that it's not part of both countries at the same time. Between the 1st of February and the 31st of July each year, Pheasant is part of Spain, then from the 1st of August to the 31st of January, it's part of France, meaning that the territory of each country fluctuates by 0.000263 square miles depending on the time of year. Now, most other places in the world, changing an island's sovereignty 2 times a year would be an enormous hassle, but what's convenient about Pheasant is that the island is uninhabited, so there's no population that has to switch between being unemployed and on strike every 6 months. Maintaining an empty, football field-sized piece of land is still a big responsibility, though. Of course, the two countries aren't actively trying to kill each other nowadays, so they don't need to meet on the island to exchange children anymore, but the island still does need maintenance. Depending on what time of year it is, the island's upkeep will either be performed by the French or the Spanish Parks Department. Young hooligans also often try to camp on the island, but they're dealt with by the police force of the country the island currently belongs to. In the past, there was a ceremony to mark the handover of the territory every 6 months, but more recently, that practice has stopped. The island is in the Basque Country, which has a fairly strong separatist movement from Spain and to a lesser extent France. The road signs on the Spanish side, for example, are in Basque and English with Spanish left out. A ceremony marking Spanish sovereignty would therefore just be asking for trouble, but the transfer of sovereignty still happens silently. Pheasant Island will likely eventually disappear as it's slowly eroding, but at least until laws are changed, the territory will continue flip-flopping between countries every 6 months. What will never disappear, though, are the Skillshare classes you download offline on their iOS or Android apps. You could be on a train in Tasmania, in a yurt in Uruguay, or on a spaceplane in space, and you could still learn what you want to learn using the Skillshare app. They have over 20,000 classes, so if there's something you want to learn, there's a good chance you can learn it with Skillshare. One course I recommend is their super popular logo design course. If you have any interest in graphic design, this is a great place to start, and you can take this or any of their 20,000 classes for free for 2 months by signing up today at skl.sh/HAI14.